Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Junior Lee. I'm a vacant land wholesaler who has closed over 100 deals in my career. In this series, I'm going to go over every single deal that I've closed so far. I will cover how I generated the lead, how I analyzed the lead, and how I disposed of it to a buyer. And I will also go over the closing process. My hope is to give away enough information that way I can inspire someone else to be successful in the field of land wholesaling. In this video, I'm going to cover my 12th closing ever, which was a vacant piece of land in Burke County, Georgia, where I was able to net $13,000 on a double closing. This particular deal was 49 acres, and being that I profited $13,000, it was my second most profitable deal at that time. This particular lead came from an SMS campaign that I was running. And at that time, every deal that I had done was definitely less than 10 acres. So going into the discussion with the seller, I was transparent and I let them know that I had not spoken to anyone about a piece of property this size before. After the initial message from my SMS software that I was using went out, which was a template that was asking if they had interest in selling, I just gathered information like business as usual. I asked about the utilities, the listing status, the asking price, and everything else that I typically ask about when I'm dealing with smaller pieces of land. Then after I gathered all of my typical information, I knew that since this land was bigger than any deal I had ever done before, there was definitely more information that I needed about the land. Just at that time, I didn't have a clue what I needed to know, but it didn't stop me from wanting to be in this discussion, in this negotiation with the seller. So I just point blank period asked them, can you tell me everything that I could possibly need to know about this piece of land? They let me know that the current use of the land was farming, and now this has been almost 4 years ago, so I don't exactly remember what type of farming that the land was used for. I just remember them telling me that it was for farming. Now, you definitely need to figure out what type of farm operation is going on a piece of land if someone does tell you that they use the land for farming. Because typically when you're looking at land, if it's under 10 acres or a spec lot or an infill lot, it's pretty simple because you're just going to run comps on that land and compare it to similar sold properties in the area. Or you can reverse engineer what a new construction home would sell for and work backwards from that sales price to figure out what you could get a buyer for on that land. But with larger tracts of land that do have farm operations or any type of agricultural operation or even timber growth, you definitely need to get as much detail about that as possible, because not only does the land have value, but what the land is being used for also has value. And this is essentially a business or a commercial deal if there is a farm operation going that is ran properly, that if you get this under contract and you're looking for a buyer, you're going to need a specific type of buyer, and they are definitely gonna want to know all of this information. So once I had gathered all of the information from the seller about the land's use and the zoning and the utilities available at the street where the road frontage is, I had learned from them that they wanted a price of about $3,000 per acre. Their total asking price was $150,000. So I'm going to be transparent with you right now and let you know that at that time, I definitely did not know how to run comps on this type of property. So all that I simply did was, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, who was land wholesaling with me in the beginning, simply went into a agricultural farmland group based in Georgia on Facebook, and she simply asked, is anyone interested in 49 acres in Burke County at $3,500 per acre? At $3,500 per acre, that would have given us about a $20,000 spread on this particular deal, which would leave room if I had to pay for a buyer's agent, I had to pay for closing costs, or anything of that nature. So once she posted in the group, we were flooded with comments and messages asking more details about the land. And honestly, the level of comments and messages that we received was what gave me the confidence to move forward with this particular deal. So with all that being said, I then reported back to the seller and I offered $140,000 plus closing costs. They countered and we ended up settling at $145,000 plus closing costs. Now, once the property was under contract and the contract was assignable, I then began to market the property to the people that had commented on the post and sent us messages directly, which led me to a gentleman by the name of Michael. Once Michael and I started speaking, I was transparent with him. I told him that I am a land wholesaler, and at this point I've closed 11 deals. However, everything that I've closed was less than 10 acres. Michael let me know that the specifics of my experience didn't really make a difference to him. What really mattered to him was this particular deal, and my transparency added another level of comfort with him that he then was able to guide me through this deal even as my buyer. And I truly do believe, looking back on it, that I could have been a little more patient and potentially looked for a retail buyer to buy this land. And I would have probably made more money at that time if I sold to a retail buyer. But what is most important is that I was able to build and cultivate a relationship with Michael, who was very pivotal in my career. He was able to educate me on this particular deal and make sure that it got through to the finish line, as well as many future deals, which then led to me doing my biggest deal of my career to this day. So if you've been following along this series, you'll notice a theme with me in that I really value relationships with people. I believe that this business is all built around relationships. 100% you can be a successful land wholesaler if you are strictly about the numbers, the analytics, getting great deals under contract and selling them to the highest bidder. But I promise you, you will go so much further if you treat this as a relationship-based business and understand that people are more than dollar signs. Everyone in this world is a person. Everyone in this world has value to offer, and you have value to offer to everyone. So in hindsight, even it being 2020, I am very grateful that I did not chase the larger payday on this particular deal and was able to cultivate and build a relationship with Michael. So back to this particular deal, I did have it under contract for $140,000. And he and I agreed on a purchase price of $160,000 plus closing cost. So I had this property under contract for a total of 12 hours before it was then under contract to sell to Michael. From that point, all that was needed was a survey on this particular deal and for the title search to be performed. He was able to obtain a survey in under 6 weeks, which at that time and in that area for this size of property was actually pretty quick. So the survey and the title search were done completely within 6 weeks. So typically for me at this point in my career, every time I had performed a double closing, both closings were set to close with the same closing attorney. However, Michael wanted to do things a little bit differently. I had already opened up the title search with my preferred closing attorney, which was in North Georgia. But Michael wanted to close his portion of the deal with his attorney, which was more local to the property. The reason being was that he wanted to improve the land and then resell it quickly. So he wanted that title search done with his attorney that he would then use to sell in a future date. At that point in time, Michael had been in the business for over 20 years, so he assured me that this would be no issue and that he would ensure that everything ran smoothly for this unique closing. So once both contracts were signed, I then sent both sets of contracts to each closing attorney and explained the process to each one so that way myself, Michael, and both attorneys were all on the same page. So once we were all on the same page and we had a closing date set in stone, we then proceeded with the closing. So I virtually signed my portion of the closing documents with Michael's attorney first. So I signed the B to C before I signed the A to B. So it was signed, Michael signed, and the funds were sent to that end closing attorney. Then I proceeded to sign the A to B portion with the seller, with my preferred closing attorney. So that was signed. Once all sets of closing documents were signed, Michael's attorney wired the full $160,000 to my closing attorney in North Georgia. Then my closing attorney sent the purchase funds to the seller and then deducted the closing cost and proration of taxes with my closing attorney, and then sent me the $13,000 wire, which was the net profits from this double closing. So at that time, this was my favorite deal that I had closed. Reason being was it was the largest deal as far as area, and it was $500 short of being my most profitable deal. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy making large sums of money, but what's really fun and fascinating is to be able to do something on that sort of scale. 49 acres is a lot bigger than what I had done at the time, and it's not near as big as what's possible, but it was big to me, and it was special to me. You know, I was 22 at the time, 23, I can't even really remember, but I was able to facilitate a deal on potentially millions, billions of year-old land, at least 49 acres of it, and facilitate a transaction and be the procuring cause as someone obtaining this land for themselves. So that's what's really important to me. That's why I believe at that time it was my favorite deal, not because it was the most profitable. The profit did not hurt, but because of the impact. It is possible to do double closings with separate title companies or closing attorneys, but it does make a lot more sense to just do the double closing with one attorney or one title company. This was the only time in my career that I had done such a thing, and the only reason I was confident in doing so was because the buyer assured me that he wasn't going to let the deal fail, and if he had to, he would restructure everything and just do the simple double closing with my attorney. But since myself, my attorney, my buyer, his attorney were all on the same page, all in communication together, we were able to make it happen. But for me doing deals now, if I'm going to close one with a specific buyer, I will just go on ahead and get the property set to close with their preferred attorney or title company. Or if I'm going to just get the property under contract and then find my buyer afterwards, I have to be strict with my buyer and let them know that we're going to close with my preferred attorney or title company. Or if the deal is contingent upon closing with their preferred attorney or company, then I will just simply do an addendum with the seller to move closing to the new title company or attorney. So to summarize everything, I pulled the list from PropStream. That's a given. From my first deal to my 100th and 5th or 6th or whatever deal I'm on now, all of my lists have come from PropStream. And the marketing method was SMS. What I currently use right now is Launch Control, and that's what I use for my SMS software. You can use anything. You can technically use your cell phone. It'll be harder, and you potentially can run into the risk of getting marked as spam or losing cell service. But if you want to invest in an SMS software, there's plenty out there. If you want to use Launch Control and you use my affiliate link, just leave a comment or let me know, send me an email. And if you use my affiliate link, I'm obviously going to get money from it, but I will help you build it out in return for you using my link. Once the list was made on PropStream, I did as I always did. I sent that list to clearskip.com for skip tracing. The list was sent back to me within a few hours. I then took that list and put it into my SMS software, did my SMS text blasting, and once the property was under contract, I did a double closing. So to get the property under contract to buy for myself, I sent up a 3-page purchase agreement, and then on the second end, because we were closing with a different attorney, I did not mind disclosing the amount of profit that I was making to my buyer, but I didn't see how I would just do an assignment to close with another attorney, so we just kept it clean, and we did a second purchase and sale agreement. So this one was 2 purchase and sale agreements, and we utilized closing attorneys because Georgia is an attorney state. Acquisition method was Facebook groups, and you'll see if you're following along this series that I utilize Facebook a lot, and I still do to this day. I utilize Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace, and simply your friends list on Facebook could potentially have buyers or agents or anyone that may be able to lead you to a buyer.